Hi, this is Jen Rubin for the Contrarian. I'm delighted to have with us Senator Andy Kim, a freshman senator from the state of New Jersey. Welcome, Senator.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Jen.
My pleasure. Tell us what has happened to the federal government since Elon Musk has been given really unprecedented power, access to the inner workings of the executive branch.
The way, I think about this a lot because, I was a career civil servant. I served this country. I started under President George W. Bush, worked under the Obama administration. I served two different presidents, two different parties. And I think that that's really what is being challenged right now, that hollowing out, first and foremost, this disrespect to the work of civil servants. And but also more fundamentally, it's this question of, should everyone in the executive branch have, undying loyalty to a specific president? And that really goes back to just the problems that we saw in the 1800s with what was called the spoils system. What we saw was, Andrew Jackson came in and created a system where uh, everyone in the executive branch had to pledge loyalty to him, and he used as a patronage network. And what ended up happening was just, decades of corruption, inefficiencies, a brokenness of our government. That's why the civil service was created. So, Musk and Trump, what they're trying to do is very much replicate something our country has been through before. And we've seen the problems of corruption. We've seen the problems that come with basically politicizing our governance and allowing politics to basically take over governance in America. And, that's, in a broad brush, what I'm very concerned about in the trajectory of this.
And of course, they seem to be taking over the power of the purse, which Congress holds to appropriate funds and to make sure those are spent. You and some other Democratic lawmakers went to USAID to sound the alarm. What is USAID and why is it so dangerous, aside from the constitutional issues, that they seem to be banking on shuttering this agency?
Yeah, a little over 20 years ago, I came down to DC and started my career in public service. And I actually started at USAID. The very first day that I worked for the US government was at USAID at the Reagan building. And it's at the Reagan building for a reason. And actually, I wanted to pull this out so that I could just kind of get it. But like, Reagan said the ultimate importance to the United States of our security and development assistance programs cannot be exaggerated. And he said, quote, the excuses. We can't afford foreign aid anymore, or we're wasting money pouring it into poor countries, or we can't buy friends. Other countries just take the money and dislike us for giving it. Well, all these excuses are just that, excuses, and they're dead wrong. There's this real sense that, it's at the Reagan building because this was a bipartisan endeavor to believe that this sense of peace through strength required more than just military deterrence. That it created this sense of three Ds, defense, diplomacy, and development as key pillars of our foreign policy. And that has what has helped lead to the United States being this, undisputed global power. So what I hope the American people understand about USAID is USAID is not charity. This is not us just saying, oh, we're altruistic, we're going to help people in other nations. We should not think about it as zero sum between, what we give abroad and what we're trying to provide to the American people. This is helping our strength. For instance, Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, just went down to Panama and told the Panamanians that we don't want them to be able to take so much aid and support from China, because that was a concern about the influence and China will have over Panama. Meanwhile, he comes right back and is trying to gut one of our main sources of financial aid and support to be able to have influence abroad. So we're telling them not to take Chinese resources, but then we're cutting off our own capacity to be able to provide resources. I just hope the American people understand this is a national security tool. Ronald Reagan and Republicans and Democrats have been in agreement on that until now. And this break could be something that would devastate. I mean, the person that wants USAID to fail the most in the world is Vladimir Putin. He's been very upfront about that. Russia wants to kill USAID. They don't like that we're promoting free media in Ukraine and elsewhere, free and independent media in Ukraine and elsewhere. Those are the types of things that I hope the American people understand.
And to be clear, one of the things that USAID is fight communicable diseases. And I thought we had learned during COVID that communicable diseases do not respect borders, that this is also for our own health, our own well being, our own self interest. Right now in the Senate, some Democrats like yourself are speaking up very forcefully. And I think people around the country really respect and appreciate that. But not all are. And in fact, there's some very dangerous nominees coming down the pike. And you have Democrats, some Democrats, who are prepared to vote for some of these. What do you tell your colleagues about rubber stamping nominees, whether they're the worst or whether they're just moderately bad, and particularly now at a time the Trump regime is savaging government and our democratic norms? What do you tell them about the confirmation process?
Yeah, well, this is my first time going through a confirmation process, so I've learned a lot through that. And what we see very clearly is Republicans have enough votes where they can pass these nominees on their own. But I do think it's important to be able to send signals. I think that I get it. Some Democrats are on certain committees and they feel like they need to have some type of relationship, and I've had to make some calculations that way. But now that we've certainly seen much more of an intensity of how basically what I'll say is, if Trump is showing this level of disrespect and disregard for our Constitution and for the separation of these branches of government, then why should we show respect to him back in terms of these confirmations, in terms of
Exactly.
the budget process and other things. So the confirmation process is certainly what's in front of us, and we can use that to raise, in particular, for instance, we have Russell Vogt coming before the Senate for a confirmation here, and this is the person who was the architect and writer of Project 2025. He is the one that is leading the charge on this idea that the executive branch can do whatever they want when it comes to federal spending, that they don't have to do the directives of Congress and impoundment, and that they can do Schedule F and basically put everybody in the executive branch under the thumb of the president to be fired at will, allowing them to ask civil servants who they voted for in the last election and decide. And so, we need to use this as an opportunity to tell the American people why some of these nominees in particular are so dangerous. Not just that they're unqualified, but that they're dangerous. They're trying to literally dismantle the organizations that they are being put in charge of, people like Kash Patel. So I think that it's important to tell the narrative, not just on the vote of why we're opposing, but use that as a spotlight onto the people. Beyond that, the tools that we'll have going forward, when it comes to, for instance, the upcoming budget process, the federal spending. We know that the Republicans right now cannot pass continuing resolution on their own, especially with the House being only around 2 vote majority. We need to make sure we're putting the pressure on them. Again, if they're clearly disregarding our inputs, then they're going to have to do that on their own. They're going to have to figure out how to be able to put their own coalition together. And I think that's going to delay their process. So those are the types of things that we need to make sure we're thinking about every single lever. We're certainly engaged in that effort as a caucus on the Senate side and trying to work with the House as well.
As we wrap up, I just want to ask, what are Republicans thinking when they approve some of these people? And I'm not talking about the Republicans who are from deep red states and have sworn allegiance to Donald Trump. But Susan Collins the other day came out and said she was going to support Tulsi Gabbard. You had someone like Tom Tillis, who's a thoughtful individual who voted to confirm Pete Hegseth. Why are they behaving this way? Are they afraid of Donald Trump?
Well, look, I can't get into the minds directly of some of my colleagues, but I will say I can really see the pressure campaign that is being, that is bearing down upon a number of them. We saw that most clearly with Senator Ernst when it came to Pete Hegseth. But that is, we're seeing that across the board. I see it with my own eyes at the Capitol, and the kind of intensity of people in the hallways and others that are very aggressive. And look, I think that right now we see again that when it comes to President Trump, the same kind of mentality that has of saying, I don't have to listen to Congress when it comes to where to spend the money. That same kind of, that belief in this like unitary executive theory, the belief that the president is supreme above all. You can see why that kind of belief there demands loyalty even from a separate branch of government, because they don't believe that that branch of government is co-equal to the executive, to the presidency. So that's really what's coming down is, this sense of falling in line and demanding that type of. And then what's the point of advising consent from the Senate if it's just about the pressure saying, oh, the president has their own ability to choose their team. I agree with a lot of that as someone who worked in the executive branch, but there's a limit. There's a limit to that. And if we're not going to exercise that limit, then why are we going through this exercise and this show of confirmation hearings to start with?
I think there are many, many Americans who agree. And the great Harry Truman, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. And if you can't do your job as a U.S. Senator and you're so afraid for your job, maybe you shouldn't be there in the first place. But you are showing leadership and courage, and we appreciate it. And we appreciate your visiting with us. We hope to see you back soon. Thank you, Senator
Great.
Kim.
Thanks so much. Take care.